Welcome to HoodChampionBoxing and Sports. In boxing, you find a way to win or you find a way to lose. You could find yourself looking for dual citizenship and being turned into a Russian if you get the shit knocked out of you, like Roy Jones did when he faced Glenn Johnson, the Road Warrior, Jamaican fighter out of Florida. But now I'm joking about Glenn Johnson turning Roy into a Russian. That whole deal with Roy going out there into Russia and getting that citizenship, there's so many articles on it, but that's because Roy had himself a lot of debt and he needed help. So he, the secret society, decided to strike a deal to alleviate him of all of his debt. But anyway, it's not about Roy Jones. Well, it is kind of. Now, when you look at a guy like Roy Jones, to get knocked out at the hands of Antonio Tarver, right? That was a bit of a sign when we saw that happen. Like, you know what? Maybe Roy needs to just go ahead and hang it up. You know what I'm saying? We tried to say Roy Jones looking horrible against Tarver. First fight, he didn't look that great. Rematch, he definitely didn't look great. Against Glenn Johnson, he didn't look great. But even to this day, when people talk about Roy Jones and his poor performance, and that first Tarver fight, second Tarver fight, and then the Glenn Johnson's fight, they kind of tie those performances to Roy Jones cutting all of that weight, coming down from heavyweight back down to fight Tarver and to fight Glenn Johnson. And the reason I point that out is because when we look at Errol Spence and what happened to him against Terrence Crawford, people are tying Errol Spence's loss to a myriad of things, but the number one thing that keeps jumping out is to the weight loss. Now, this is how I feel on that, right? We saw Roy try to continue his career after that first Tarver fight, where it was, now when you look back at it, it's pretty obvious that Roy Jones just happened to, from the weight loss or overnight or whatever the hell happened, Roy Jones just happened to get old. And when I look at Errol Spence, I'm like, damn, are we looking at Spence and Crawford? That first fight, was that Roy Jones Jr. against Antonio Tarver won, although Spence lost? What I'm getting at is, are we seeing some signs that maybe it's time for Spence to hang it up? Do we need to see Roy Jones Tarver 2 for Spence to get knocked out cold? Because when you look at Spence and Crawford 2, that's going to happen. That's exactly what I see taking place. Slick, left-handed fighter in Crawford, although we know he fights, he's ambidextrous, but let's just call him a slick southpaw that has that long reach and can get that shot off from anywhere. And when he lands that left and comes back with that right, it's nights out for these guys. And I see something happening here to Errol Spence that's going to be reminiscent of what we saw with Roy Jones Jr. when he got in that fight with Tarver. Now, the problem is, let's say Spence gets knocked out cold in the second fight against Terrence Crawford. Then he goes on now at 154, he fights a guy like Tim Tszyu. Now, Tim Tszyu to me is the Glenn Johnson of boxing. He's out there, I'll call him a road warrior. He'll go anywhere and fight. Of course, he prefers to fight at home, but he's a guy, boxing skills, not the greatest. Defense, not necessarily the greatest. But there's something special about Tim Tszyu's hands and his chin. If you hit him, it's like hitting a piece of oak wood. Same way Carl Froch described Glenn Johnson when he fought him. It's not going to go anywhere. But when he hits you, there's a problem. And Tim Tszyu has shown us When he lets his hands go, it's a problem for his opponents. And I could see Errol Spence. He and Crawford fighting. Crawford probably may or may not fight Tim Tszyu. He goes on to try to fight someone for even bigger money. And Errol Spence being the way he is, if he continues fighting after he gets tranquilized by Crawford in the sequel, which I think is going to happen, he goes now to get a crack at Tim Tszyu because Errol Spence's name is still a big name. Tim Tszyu is a big name, and Tim Tszyu hopefully will still have a strap by then. And you know, Errol Spence believes in strap season, and he goes out there messing around with Tim Tszyu. And what happens to Errol Spence is what happened to Roy Jones messing around with Glenn Johnson. He gets tranquilized and left out on the canvas, stiff as a mannequin. Now, that being said, everyone's going to have an opinion on this. But I just think what we're looking at, I think the writing's on the wall for what's coming for Errol Spence in his fight against Terrence Crawford and for his subsequent fights if he continues. The good thing about Errol Spence is he got his money situation, his money affairs in order. Roy Jones didn't. Roy Jones tried, make some investments like Floyd Mayweather, make smart investments, smart business decisions. Minor setback for a major comeback. I'll finish it for you. But that being said, just sit back and see what happens. Now, if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, because I know a lot of cats, I can tell when the young cats get in the comments. They don't know what the fuck they're talking about. But you can tell the cats who, even if you're younger, you're up on your boxing. But y'all leave your comments below and let me know what you think. But I personally think this is what we're looking at, and I think Errol Spence needs to just call it the day. Because this shit with him and Crawford is, you know, hey, it is what it is. You know what I'm saying? He wants to continue fighting just like Roy Jones wanted to continue, and he ended up, but things weren't quite working out for him. He went and became a Russian. So who knows? Maybe Errol Spence will go to Russia too and be like, you know, a little Roy Jones the third. I don't know. But that being said, y'all keep cool. Shout out to the veterans, all 7 continents. If you don't know who Glenn Johnson is, he stuck the fork in Roy Jones. And Roy Jones was never the same. He wasn't the same in that first Tarver fight. The second one definitely wasn't the same. The third one. And then the third fight he had, well, it was 2 fights with Tarver, then the third fight was with Glenn Johnson. It just didn't work out well for Roy. And I'm just wondering if what we're seeing here is the same thing that is going to happen with Errol Spence. Y'all keep cool in the breeze.